could do that before in other ways, but I can't do it that same way through here. So give me 1 second. It does show that I'm live. And if you are watching and it's not live and you're watching at this very moment, give me a thumbs up, and make a comment. Even if you're watching after the fact, not only will you get a question, if you're asking a question, not only will that question be answered, but like I cannot overstate how massive comments and likes are in helping grow this channel. When we get consistent with them, it's huge. When they're inconsistent, those videos die a slow death, and even the really valuable ones that I thought would go really well. So as usual, but like, you know, I say it as usual, but it's not usual for people to think I'm going to give it a thumbs up, even if it's like 10%. That's still a small amount, and that's doing really well on a YouTube video. So yeah, thumbs up and comments are huge. And we're just going to check the sound. So hold on 1 second. And comments are... Yeah, we're all good. Okay, so I'm going to use that to monitor the chat. I've got preloaded questions, so we can go right away with a brand new Rugby Muscle podcast, our live Q&A edition for March. The plan is now to go forward with a live Q&A for every single month at the end of the month, the last Thursday or Friday at the end of each month. I've got my chamomile tea, even though it says coffee on the front. I've got my sparkling water here in Lisbon, and we've also got questions preloaded, so we are ready to go. Again, if you ask questions in the comments below, or if you join us live and you ask questions, those will get priority, and they will definitely be answered either in the comments or on the video itself, or on the next video if we can get into depth. And that's the idea of these live Q&As, is that we want to give you a bit more depth, because it's, you know, everyone has their own questions, they have their own specific problems, and it's difficult to run through specific answers without coaching and giving someone an actual recommendation, having them move forward with those recommendations and then seeing how things go. But it's also it's also difficult to give any sort of black and white answer, and I say it's difficult, it's bloody impossible to do so, because you just don't have the context. So what we can do with these live Q&As is run through the different contexts that are there, give you lots of options. You go try that out. If it works out brilliantly, fantastic. If it doesn't, you can try some of the other options, or you can come back with your next problem. And the idea is that we build and we build and we build. We've already got a huge backlog of live Q&As on this channel and on the podcast. So subscribe if you haven't already, and go check those out. And then without further ado, let's get into the questions. So Renato Leca Anorga, I don't know if this, I've probably butchered that name already, but Renato, he says, how to recover from a very demanding rugby game and when to start training rugby or gym. So how to recover from a very demanding rugby game? Time. You don't recover. Your body recovers on its own. You can kind of support those processes, but the best way of supporting those processes is by not doing too much, right? If you've got processes whereby the body is damaged and the muscles are bruised, and then you go and overly fatigue those muscles again, they've got more to recover from. It's not that they're not recovering from the bruising, it's that they've got to recover from the bruising, and now they've got to recover from the extra strain that you've put them under. So you've got to be aware of what recovery truly is. The next point I would say is, it's going to be a cheap plug, but Rugby Muscle, we have just launched a brand new Evolution in-season guide, and that goes through the exact steps of what to do post-game, because it's an in-season guide. It's got a program in there that can go from 6 days to 3 or even 2 days of training a week, and it can have you actually really make great gains during the season, which is a difficult thing to do because of this fact where we have a very demanding rugby game and then we've got to still try and train. So I would absolutely recommend checking that out. I'll put the link in the description below. It's not going to be right now because we're live, but I'll put it in after the fact, or you can just go to rugby-muscle.com and find it through the products link there. But I'll give you a bit of a hint as to what the Evolution in-season guide will give you, or will tell you to do. it will tell you to train the day after the game. And I know that's gonna piss off a lot of people. Not many people want to be training on a Sunday after a tough game on Saturday, and I get that. And when I tell you what you're supposed to do, you're probably even less inclined to go and train. But what can be massively effective the day after a game is just something real low intensity cardio. I'll just put it like that. Okay, that means you've got so many options, but if you can do some zone 2 work for 30 to 60 minutes the day after a game, you're beginning your recovery processes. You're also getting ahead of the curve with your conditioning work so that you don't need to do more conditioning work down the line. If you take the day off after a game, this is something I've very much changed my mind with, not relatively recently, but I have changed my mind with it somewhat recently. I think I'm a big believer in this now. Like, if you play a game and then you go out and do some aerobic work, that means that you can take a break during the training week and be okay with that, right? Because you got to remember that you're getting beaten up from your rugby game on the Saturday, but you're also getting beaten up from your training on the Tuesday, your training potentially on the Thursday, and of course, if you're really trying to push the weights, like, you're not necessarily getting beaten up as in like you can't walk, but you will feel the effects of 3 or so weight training sessions during a week. So if you can offset some of that work by getting ahead of the curve with your aerobic conditioning work, you can then be really prepared to then go into the week and have a day off during that week. The other thing is that then you're actually already recovering because you're getting that blood flow throughout the body, and like potentially enhancing that recovery process, potentially even keeping your muscles like nice and loose for your Monday training session, which can be one of your most intense training sessions. I usually like to do it Tuesday because then it's like slap bang as far away from your Saturday as possible, giving you room to have a break on either side. But because you've done that aerobic work, you're more prepared for that work. Whereas if you just take Sunday off, often what you'll find is you'll wake up on Monday and you'll still be kind of sore, and in that Monday session, even though it's still building towards the Tuesday, it's building to the rest of the week, building to be more high intensity, you just start it flat. Whereas if you've already got some work done the day after a game, that absolutely can help you. So I hope that helps. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long run, because potentially running might not be the best idea. It could be just the elliptical, it could be bike, it could be rowing, it could be swimming. Is difficult to keep zone 2, particularly for heavier guys, because we sink, right? And then heart rate gets too high. But look into it, those sorts of ideas. You can also do weights, but that's the best way to recover. And then when to start, like, you should just get going, and you can alter the volume depend on how beat up you are. You should still be able to push weight. 1 or 2 sets is still very much capable for everyone. But a lot of these questions are, real deep and nuanced, and they're answered within the Evolution in Season guide. We got a question on the live feed from Finn. He says, how do you mentally prepare for training or games? I think this is a difficult one. Actually, it's something that I've discussed, recorded yesterday with Dan Cottrell, who's a coach to rugby coaches. But he says one of the biggest things is for players to really take accountability of what they want out of the session. So for games, like, it's not necessarily, you shouldn't worry too much about what depending on your level, you're going to understand what the opposition are going to try to do. But you don't necessarily have to worry about what they're trying to do. Does that make sense? You're understanding what you're preparing for, but really, you're playing rugby for you to express yourself. And if you express yourself really well, you're going to play your best rugby, and therefore you're going to really enjoy it. So I think it's just about, there is an element of visualization. What are you going to do really well? And picture your moments when they come and how you would like to take them. But other than that, just relax. I think, especially the day of a game, I like to, for the most part, take my mind off and get my athletes to take their mind off of the game. you don't necessarily want to, if you've got a 2 p.m. kickoff, you don't want to spend that whole day really stressing and overworking yourself, because then you'll just be knackered by the time the game even rolls around. You want to um, go into the game nice and relaxed, and you do that by not stressing about the games to come. You can try tactics like minimalizing it, like no one really cares at the end of the day. Like even the top level, time moves on and no one really cares. But I would suggest really thinking about what you want to do in the game, all the positive actions that you can take, and how you're going to do those. Same thing for training, right? Except for training, rather than say, "Oh, all these positive things I'm really going to nail," you can also take into account like new learnings that you want to take away, something that you're not very good at. That if you've got a good coach, you're playing lots of games, you'll you'll still have chance and opportunities to work on your weaknesses and make mistakes and be okay with making those mistakes. I think that's a maybe if you listen to a lot more Rugby Muscle from the last few months and probably for the rest of this year, this is something that I'm really thinking that is important that rugby players don't understand. Is if you're going to improve as a rugby player, it's not just strength and conditioning is great, right? Because we can always keep improving, and that's what I'm here for. But skill work, like you still need to fail to get better at skill work. You can't just go in and already be the best passer, or if you're someone that isn't very good at tackling, you can't just go, all right, now I'm going to be a good tackler and then just do it. No, you've got to put in the work. You're going to miss a bunch of tackles before you become a really good tackler. And that's okay, because you're now putting yourself in a position to make those tackles, and you're figuring out why you missed them, you're problem solving, and you're getting better. Next question, let me take a little fizzy water break. Once again, if you're watching on the live feed, thumbs up, and if you have any questions, again, put them in the comments below. We have Ignacio, who says, can you improve your rugby just doing full cleans, power jerks, squats, and deadlifts? Saludos. Ignacio, no, you can't improve your rugby just doing that stuff. You will improve your cleans, your power jerks, your squats, and your deadlift, but you're not going to improve as a rugby player because you're not playing rugby. You need to play rugby to improve as a rugby player. And I know that's I know that's a bit of a dickhead answer, but like I understand the intent behind the question. And sure, keeping things simple is great, and absolutely you could do those movements like that. They're solid movements, and they're solid things that would improve you as an explosive athlete and as a rugby player. But like, what you've got to think is like, why not add in rows? Why not add in horizontal pushing and horizontal pulling, horizontal pushing? Why not add in loads of stuff, right? Why not add some sprinting in? Why not add some conditioning in? See, the problem with this type of question is that this is one of those questions where you've got a program or an exercise or whatever unnecessary restriction that you want to put on your training, and then you want to justify that restriction for being okay, right? It's like saying, what's the best way to play rugby without eating carbs? No, eat carbs, right? It's like, it's fine if you're restricting yourself for that choice, but why? Why make that choice? Why pigeonhole yourself into only having to do full cleans, power jerks, squats, and deadlifts? It doesn't make sense. I guess it's kind of like buildings, right? Like, I love building analogies. You could build a 10-story tower with just a couple blokes that lay bricks, right? And obviously all the equipment that they need, but those blokes, they could just work a lot over time, and eventually they'll build up a 10-story tower with just laying the bricks. And sure, there are much better ways to do it, and eventually you're gonna be limited by your safety, and you're gonna run into issues, but you could do it. You could also make a tiny garden shed using a crane and cement or whatever you use to make giant 10-story towers. You could do the same thing and apply it and try and make a little garden shed. But once again, that's going to be inefficient. It is possible, but it's inefficient, and eventually you're going to run into issues. And because you've pigeonholed yourself into using XYZ equipment or XYZ movement sets, you've made your life so much more difficult. Now, if you have no choice at all, you've got to only, you're someone that's got a construction crew and they've said, oh, look, I'll pay you $1 million and you're going to make this garden shed. You can do it, but it's there's much better ways to do it. Like if you have a barbell, then you can row, and if you like, because I'm assuming this question is, Ignacio, because you've got a barbell and weight, so you're figuring out what you can do. Well, you can do barbell rows, you can do presses, you can lunge, you can. I mean, single leg work is really really important. So lunges, split squats, that sort of stuff. You've got a body on you, so you can sprint, you can do lots of conditioning work. I mean, I think if you're someone that's asking this question about exercise selection and thinking about the big compound lifts, you're probably already pretty good at the big compound lifts, but you might not be good or as good as you could be, and to really like level up your rugby game by being really well conditioned, by doing like lots of aerobic work, as I've alluded to earlier, lots of different movement work. Like that stuff could have a lot more dividends than adding an extra 10, even 20 pounds or 20 kilos even to your power clean or to your full clean. That might have a little bit of a difference, but really getting yourself conditioned, if you're already pretty strong, could actually have a much bigger difference. So like, yes, you can do full cleans and you can do power jerks and you can do all that stuff, but you don't have to limit it to that stuff. Obviously you have to limit your training to your schedule, and you want to do that, right? And you want to make sure that you're not over stretching yourself, but limiting yourself on your exercise selection is not the way to go. Limit yourself on the total sets that you want to do, and then like figure out exactly what it is that you want to improve. But I mean, I understand the question, and I'm sorry if I ragged on you a little bit there. That's the point though, right? It's like, it's a pigeonhole question that we don't need to answer. The answer is no, because you need to play rugby. If you're playing rugby, then yes. But if you're already really good at all that stuff, then maybe conditioning, not doing any of that stuff and just running you could become a much better rugby player by doing that. Next question. Let me see if we've got another one. No worries, Finn. Thank you for joining us live. Staying on track whilst on vacation. That's not really a question, but I get it, John. You want help. So if you want to stay on track when you're on vacation with your training, with your nutrition, like I guess the overall general rule of thumb that I use is don't play catch up, right? Find your minimums, the minimum amount that you can do to basically retain your stuff, like, and not get huge and not give yourself so much work to do post vacation, and go with that, right? Plan ahead is going to be key, both with your expectations in terms of like, if you're constantly going to the buffet, maybe then you're not going to have to worry about under eating or whatever it is your expectations could be. Maybe if you're going on an island retreat where there's no gyms, then saying that you're going to do heavyweight sessions is just not realistic. So let go of some expectations as well. But then also in terms of like plan ahead, in terms of like what you do need to do and how you need to fit that in. Just one morning plan throughout every 4 or 5 days where you actually get a session in could make a huge difference. And if you don't plan it, it won't happen, particularly if you're on vacation, but in general in life, if you don't plan stuff, it won't happen. If you have a coach, John, you have a coach. I know who he is. It's me. So explain that ahead of time, right? We can plan training around your vacations. And that's usually one of the things I really do like to do, is I like to figure out weeks where life will probably deload you. Vacation's obviously one of the biggest ones where that's going to be a real good time to de-stress, and we'll work up training, slowly increasing the intensity and all the volume to the point where we really push it in that 1 week before vacation, and then you just bugger off and you enjoy your vacation. And not only do you then deload and actually recover and hopefully come back potentially even better, but you also get to enjoy your vacation completely guilt-free, like not thinking, crap, I should be doing some runs or I should be doing some heavy lifts today. No, you want to enjoy your vacation and you want to use it for that de-stressing component that you get from it. So John, you could also, we'll plan that and we'll talk in the Telegram, which as soon as I finish this live, I'm going to shoot you a message and we're going to come up with a game plan. And I'll give you some extra goals. But the basic principle here is you're not going to make, it's not the tons of progress that you make on vacation that's going to make a difference. It's the tons of progress that you make away from your vacation that aren't then subsequently messed up by 1 or 2 weeks of just binging and being a slob, right? That can really derail you. So John, I'll message you, but we're going to be talking about just some level of meal control. and then some level of minimal effective conditioning work. Monty says, saludos desde Argentina. Ah, perfect. No, that was Portuguese. I'm not, Monty, I'm not going to be able to talk to you in Spanish. I'm just wrapping my head around Portuguese, and that will really confuse me. But thank you for joining live. Make sure you hit thumbs up. If you have any questions, put them in Google Translate and put them in the comments. Phil says, can you do a weighted squat jumps video or any other video for explosiveness and driving power? I'm trying to work on my explosiveness and driving power since I tend to get driven backwards. I don't have a sled or anything, just a conventional weight room. Okay, so first question I would ask for that is, why specific squat jumps? Like, squat jumps can work, but if you're getting driven backwards, like that sort of power where we're talking about like scrum specific stuff or ruck specific stuff, that is a lot more strength biased power, right? So you've got, power is basically on a, what's the word? I've completely spaced on the word. It is on a, I don't know, we're just going to say sliding scale, on a spectrum. That's the bloody word. Power is on a spectrum, right? Where you've got strength on one side and you've got speed on the other. And everything in the middle isn't quite strength and it isn't quite speed, but it's power, right? So we can just take weighted squat jumps for an example, right? So you could do weighted squat jumps with just the bar and you would jump, or you could do weighted squat jumps and say your body is the weight. That's still weighted squat jumps, right? And you would jump. Then you could put 60 kilos on the bar. You're going to jump slower because you've got 60 kilos. It's still power, but it's more strength biased power, right? Then you've got, then you put 100 kilos on the bar and all of a sudden you can't even really jump, but you're still not really working your max strength. The pushing element of rugby and where you're focusing on like driving really hard, whether in rucks or in mauls or in scrums, that's a lot more strength. If anything, it's almost solely strength. So I think for you, Phil, we would look at just both ends of this spectrum, really biasing the strength. So work your heavy, get in your heavy work, get in your heavy squats, work strength, and then when you're working power, like work the speed element of it. So lighter jumps, just jumps, body weight, just learn to really move efficiently, learn to sprint well, learn to use one leg and project in different directions. Then you've got the best of both. And that middle stuff will then come as a result of these two. Yes, you can work on that middle stuff as well outside, but if you've got these two to develop, particularly strength, if you've got a lot of strength to develop, go ahead and develop that, because if you're getting driven backwards, that's not power. That's someone pushing you, and you're pushing them back with strength, not with power. So that's kind of how I would say. If you can spend time working on squat jumps, but it's kind of very specific. And actually, we've got squat jumps as part of one of the sessions in the Evolution in-season guide. So Phil, if you're in season, I would check that out because there's a video linked on how to do squat jumps in that. The other thing with squat jumps is people tend to, particularly if we're talking about weighted, like a barbell squat jump, the worst thing people do with those is go too heavy. Like that's just a lot of load through your spine when you land. You don't want to do that can crush people. So keep it light, keep it explosive. If you've just got a bar in conventional weight room, like power cleans can work, power snatches can work even better. I would do squats and power snatches, in fact, yeah. So I've come about to that answer just by rambling. Cool. All right. Ioana Faigafa. Sorry if that is a, I'm pretty sure that's a very Polynesian name that if you can comment below once we've watched this video and spell it phonetically for me, that would help a lot. But he says, thoughts on carb loading the day before a game, body comp effects in the long term, question mark. That second part is key, right? And actually it relates to the first part, because both, right, the effectiveness of a carb load the day before a game and the body composition effects in the long term are both affected by your overall weekly monthly, like continual calorie intake and carbohydrate intake. If you're having no carbs during the week, and then you bump it up to 600 grams is what I usually recommend for a 100 kilo athlete. So divide that up by however much you want, whatever your body weight is. If you have that much carbs the day before a game, you're going to feel that effect, and you're probably going to feel pretty good as long as you didn't eat all of that 600 carbs in one sitting. There's lots of different ways I can go with this. So basically, the main bigger picture thing here is that it depends on your overall calorie intake. If you're already maintaining, if not slightly gaining weight, and you're eating excessive calories, it's going to have a minimal effect. You can put it in there because it's going to, just for the mental benefit, so you're not questioning whether you've eaten enough on the game day. You could say if you're already on 400, you could bump that up to 600. Probably unnecessary, right? But you could absolutely do that. And it's probably going to have a minimal effect both on your performance and on your weight gain, because that's now a less significant amount that you've tacked on the top. Whereas if you're on really low calories, low carbs, low energy, and then you put in a load of carbs the day before a game, that can have quite a big effect both on your performance, because you're underfed and then you're going into a nice fed state and you're feeling good. And it's not that that fed state makes you feel amazing, it's just that being underfed and playing a game sucks. So you want to make sure that you're fully fed and you're fully carbohydrate loaded, which means that your liver and all of your muscles are saturated with carbs. It's the easiest way to explain it. Ready to go, right? So you can do that. And actually, the day before is much better than what I do see some people do, which is of the day of, because you're giving yourself time to digest that. And therefore, it can help. But the overall thing is, where are your total calories at, right? And it's probably not worth, like, say if for one example, we have 100 calories or 100 grams of carbs every day, Monday to Thursday, and then on Friday, we bump that up to 600. Like, it might be better off just upping the carbs throughout the week, and then only going, so maybe you do 200 throughout the week, and then you go up to 400 on the Friday. Something like that. That's just a random ballpark, pluck numbers out of my arse sort of an answer there, but you get the point, right? Your overall weekly intake is going to be more important to how you're feeling. And that's something that the more I do this, the more I relearn. It's like, yes, bumping up the carbs a little bit, but what you'll find is, because your activity is lower on the Friday, genuinely, and before a game your activity is lower, you keep those carbohydrates that you would have burned like Monday to Thursday if you've got a busy training schedule anyway. But overall, smash the carbs throughout the week. Don't worry about it too much. If people are keen, I can definitely go on this even more and give a bit more of a breakdown on carbs before in and around a game. Dakota asks, how would you change your conditioning work to get ready for sevens? Good question. I guess in general, like, it doesn't change as much as what you would think, or what I would even have thought a few years back. I think you still need to be really, 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 really aerobically fit to do sevens, because the game is not just played. People say, sevens, it's played over 7 or 14 minutes. It's not. It's played over a full day, right? Like, if you're knackered by the end of the day, that's the most important time to have energy. And if you've got a weak aerobic system, that's going to happen. Or if you've got a 7 tournaments a weekend, even worse, right? The better your aerobic system is, the better you can last, not just in one game, because even the strongest of anaerobic systems are not lasting for 14, 15 minutes or even 7 minutes, right? Even that, right? We're not thinking about during the game, we're thinking about during the longer term. So aerobically, working your aerobic system is still huge for Rugby Sevens fitness. But then also in general, and also the other end of the spectrum, right? We've got speed. We want to be really fast, even more so again for sevens, because of the open spaces. There's less of a minimum. There's more of a minimum requirement. You have to be X amount fast just to be, doing your job. And someone that might have stood out on a 15s pitch because they were fast is now is now more exposed for potentially not being as fast. Or if you've got someone that wants to use their speed, like, it's more important in a game of 7. So, then we're talking about speed. We're not just talking about the actual like the physical ability to run fast. We're also talking about your alactic capacity and your alactic power, your ability to produce that force repeatedly for less than, I guess 7 seconds would be like the maximum output. So you would do like that high intensity training would be something that you would have to try and implement, but that's something that you would have to implement for 15s as well. So something that would change, probably be a little bit more emphasis on that high intensity, because it is that important. But then again, right, and this is something that I'll come back to quite a bit, is when you're just doing your rugby training, like, how many of these systems are already being hit, right? Maybe, and this is where I would have argued to spend more time in the middle, right? So this would be the only time I would recommend doing things like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, like balls to the wall as hard as you can go, because that you do find yourself in those situations in 7s. But if you're training 3 times, okay, I think we're back. Where was I? So you burn yourself into the ground if you're just doing that high intensity stuff. So not high intensity, the high intensity stuff, the lots of the sprints, the intense work. If you're already doing that in 7s training and 7s matches and 7s tournaments a few times a week, you can't use your off days to work on that. Likewise, you can't use your off days to work on the sprint stuff. So I would try and stack and tack on some speed and power work, or even some alactic work. So for alactic work, you're looking at 5 to 7 seconds of working as hard as you can, followed by either a minute or so rest for power, and then 20 seconds or so, no, 10 seconds rest for capacity. Both times you would do sets of, say, 6, and maybe you would do 2 rounds of that. Something like that would be fantastic to work on your alactic capacity and alactic power. So the power is the longer rest where you're really trying to exert as much force as you can. The capacity is you're trying to keep up, okay? And you're only doing it 6 times, 10 or so seconds on, 10 or so seconds off. Becomes really tough, but you can absolutely do it. And I say 10 seconds off, I mean 5 to 7 seconds on. And then on top of that, so then we're looking at aerobic work once again. And on your off days, because you've been working so intense, it's probably a very good idea to do aerobic work to help you recover, but also that condition that I've already talked about. It's super important. This is the thing that I will go on about the most, and that is be conditioned, work on your aerobic ability, work on your aerobic capacity, be a strong aerobic athlete, and you will compete and you will play your best and give yourself the best ability to play, to train, to improve. I believe that brings us to the end. Dean says the carnivore diet, science says it's our species appropriate diet. No, it doesn't. That's not what the science says. That's what one particular scientist that you've decided to argue says, but that's just not the case. I'm not like, I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian, but if you want to eat meat, that's fine. But it's not the answer. There is no diet that's the answer, unless you're talking about like ethics and stuff, but then even then there's no diet that's the answer, because what your ethics are your own debate. So I'll end on that. How about that? 35 minutes and we're done. If you made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't done already. What are you doing? It makes such a huge difference, and it really does help out. If you have any questions about your rugby training, your nutrition for your rugby, any sort of fitness stuff, you can even ask wacky questions like Dean just did there about the carnivore diet, saying it's science-based. Put them in the comments below. I always enjoy reading the comments. I always enjoy responding to the comments, and obviously the more interesting ones and the ones that I think justify it, either get answered on a future Q&A or get their own future video, because at the end of the day, this channel exists for you guys that are watching. If you're watching this video, you know, your questions are the ones that I want to answer, and that's how I create content, that's how I create videos. So ask any questions in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up. If you're new, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. Even if you're subscribed, hit that little bell. Where is it? That little bell down there? Hit it. It helps me out. I'll wait a couple seconds while you do that. Cool, you've done that already. All right, there are links to all of the programs, coaching, all that good stuff in the description below. My battery's about to cut out, so I'll see you guys in the next one.